I always thought I knew my family well. Everyone has their own secrets, but we try to live without them, especially when it comes to something important. My mother raised us like this. We trusted her and my sister, but then it turned out that I was wrong. That after all, my little sister Anna had something to hide, and when I revealed her secret, I was confused because it was shocking. My name is Frankie, as I said, and I have a little sister, Anna, who's very sweet and kind, or so I thought. My parents and I thought she was almost a dandelion. Since I was a child, my father told me to stand up for her, to protect her always, to be there for her, and to be able to listen, because I'm her own person and the only one who wants only the best. You understand that it doesn't always work out that people we call friends always be with us. This is life. There's nothing bad or good here. It's just normal and you need to accept it. I remembered my parents' instructions, and I always try to do my duty as a brother. When Anna was growing up, we watched it with emotion because she was the youngest child. We have a small age difference of 3 years, but it still strengthened my position as the senior in the house. So one day, when we went to school with her, we were almost hit by a car on the way there. I was so scared, but I reacted quickly, pushing her to the side of the road. Anna fell straight into the mud, but she wasn't hurt. I was fine too. I remembered the car. I wanted to go to the police, but Anna dissuaded me. She said that it was some kind of jerk, and it wasn't worth it. I listened to her, and I shouldn't have. Around the same time, we began to notice that Anna was separating from us. She spent more and more time alone in the room, and often began to go out for a walk. I understood that she was a teenager. Apparently, there were friends, interests, and so on. We didn't want to limit or intrude too much into her personal space, but the more we kept quiet, the more she had a life of her own. I never tried to talk to her. Maybe something's bothering her. But she just smiled back at me, and that's it. Anna liked to run to the house in our yard, where we kept unnecessary junk. But sister cleaned it up properly, made it cozy, and she went there with her friends. Sometimes they all spent the night there. My mother occasionally visited there, but Anna did not like it, so we tried not to disturb her once again. Our distance from each other worried me. I could feel something happening, but I couldn't figure out what it was. Almost 6 months had passed in this way. Anna was completely different. She was no longer the same cheerful girl, and one day, I decided to pick her up after school. I went to pick her up in class, but the teacher said that she hadn't shown up for school for 3 days. Yes, I'm sorry. I stopped by out of habit. I forgot. She's sick. I'm sorry, Miss Trevel. She'll be here tomorrow. I said to the teacher and I left. I had to lie so she wouldn't call the parents. I was already seriously worried, which meant that something had happened, and I needed to find out what it was. The first thing I did was go to her friend Barbara's house, where they'd been friends for several years. When she saw me, she was surprised. We just talked to her on the phone yesterday. She said that she was at home, that everything was fine. She said that she would do her homework because today she has a chemistry test. Barb said. My sense of unease was transmitted to her. Her friend said that Anna had changed a lot. She's become secretive since she met a guy named Brad. I immediately asked who he was and where he came from, but according to her, my little sister didn't really want to talk about him. They spent a lot of time together, so for the last 3 weeks, we haven't even met once. Just talked on the phone, she said. I decided to find him, but there was so little information that I realized that it was possible that I would find something in her room. I went home and told my mother that Anna had gone to visit Barbara, and I went to my sister's room secretly. I quickly searched the room, but found nothing special, absolutely nothing. However, the only thing that I noticed was some kind of book, or rather a notebook with numbers. What they meant, I didn't understand. I took it with me, and then I abruptly remembered about the house in the yard. I went there and saw a combination lock with a hesitant movement. I tried to enter the numbers combination, but everything was wrong. For 20 minutes, I tried to open it and even break down the door, but nothing happened. I sat down on the ground, and I began to think, what is it that she installed a combination lock? And then suddenly, I felt her notebook in my pocket. I tried a few numbers, and voila, the door opened. I went in there and turned on the light. In general, everything looked the same as always, just a little dirty. After a little digging, I suddenly noticed the shoes. They were men's shoes, and Brad came to mind. Ugh, I didn't even want to think about him being here. I checked the wardrobe, the sofa, the table, but there was nothing special, and before I left, I tripped over the shoes and almost fell, hitting the wall next to the TV. I clicked on something and I heard a click. The head immediately turned to the side of the door. Only now I noticed that the recess in the shape of the door was different in color from the main wall. As soon as I opened it, almost fell in a small opening, like a tiny room. I saw a weapon. Oh, my God. Sis, where are you going? I thought. I didn't take it with my bare hands, so I took Anna's t shirt, wrapped it up, and took it back to me. I had my things in a safe place, along with my notebook. Almost as soon as I walked in, my mom asked me to call Anna, and she told me the news. There was a murder in the city, and it happened just a couple blocks away. I was worried. I called Anna, but she didn't answer, and a moment later, she appeared on the doorstep. She behaved so naturally and sat down at the table and began to ask what was for lunch. My mother asked me about school, and I sat there and listened to how easy it was for her to lie. I didn't know how to talk to her, where to start, and then a couple of hours later, she said that a friend had come to visit her and she wanted to go. My mother only allowed me a stand outside the house, and Anna agreed. When the car arrived, I recognized it. It was the sedan that almost hit us on the road. They went into the house. In the yard, I followed them. He was so ugly, older than her, and my heart sank. I couldn't help but rush in, grab him by the collar, and push him against the wall, and the door opened. Anna nervously cast a glance there, and he asked, "Where? Where is he?" Not even paying attention to the fact that I'm holding him. Anna said she didn't know, and then she yelled at me. It all happened so fast. Your weapon's in a safe place with all your prints, I told him, and he turned pale. What did you get her into? While Anna begged me to let him go. Brad tried to free himself, but he couldn't, and I clenched my fist and was about to paint his face. When Anna said that I had misunderstood everything. Brad tried to hit me again, so I did it first and he passed out. Anna began to cry, and I demanded an explanation. She begged him not to turn him into the police and said that his brother accidentally shot while playing with a gun and wounded a man. Brad tried to hide it, but she helped him. I asked her where he got it and why he almost ran us over on the road, and she said it was his stepfather's, and he was a criminal, but Brad's mother loved him, so she asked him to hide it. The stepfather's being tried. If he gets caught again, he'll be put in jail forever. She loves him, and Brad, he's protecting his little brother. His stepfather was in the car at the time. He was drunk and doesn't even remember driving. Anna said, as I was stunned, and then Brad came to his senses and told me the same thing. He begged me not to hand him over to the police, but I said I couldn't let it go. But I knew that my sister would also suffer for possession of a weapon. We told our parents, and they were horrified, but they thanked me for doing the right thing. Brad's stepfather was jailed for selling illegal things. Anna was interviewed, and Brad himself was also punished. He's now working out his allocated hours of community service. At first, Anna was angry, but then she promised not to get into any more trouble, or at least not to hide it from me. It's all over now. Tell me, guys, you like my story? Write your opinion about it in the comments below the video. Don't forget to put likes, share the video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
I used to think that people who kept a personal diary were weird. I thought that only the lonely or the crazy did it. I thought so until I came across it myself. My diary not only listened to my problems, but thanks to it, I didn't make a mistake. You could say that my diary saved my life, but in return, my parents learned all my secrets. So, I'm Stella. I have parents and an older brother whose name is Justin, by the way. Our age difference is 6 years. Yes, this is the age when there can be no common interests between us. My brother always liked to play alone as a child. When I tried to join him, taking cars or soldiers without asking, Jess got really mad. He immediately threw a hysterics so that I would take my hands away, or better yet, go to another room and never visit him. I immediately cried and ran to complain about it to my mother. I cried out in tears that he had offended me and said he didn't want to see me. Oh, my mother always gave him a thrashing after that. I remember her always telling him that he was the eldest and should be more lenient with me. I didn't quite understand the phrase, but it was a good one. Yes, I was happy when my brother got beaten from my parents because of me. Being the youngest in the family is a pleasure. Everyone loves you, brings you all the most delicious things, often takes you to an amusement park, buys toys. All the attention goes to the little ones, and this always happens. Once, when my parents went to visit Aunt May in the hospital, Jess and I stayed home. My parents said we shouldn't go with them. My brother was left in charge. As soon as Dad's car disappeared around the corner, Jess told me to go to my room, play with my dolls, and not leave until the adults returned. I knew he meant it, and I pretended to agree to everything. After 10 minutes, I left the room and went to my brother, but he was not in his room, in the living room, or in the kitchen. Then I went out to the back and saw him smoking. When my parents arrived, I naturally told my mother about it and showed her where he hid a pack of cigarettes as proof. Yes, I saw it too. Oh, Justin's face was red with anger at that moment, but I couldn't forgive him for his attitude towards me. War is war. At this point, I came up with a brilliant idea to write down all of my brother's joints, to keep a diary, so I could then ask him for anything in return for the diary. As I planned, so I did. Records, that is. Dirt became even more. We could only wait for more to accumulate. I already imagined that in return for the diary, Justin buys me a house for Barbie, which I have long dreamed of. But then something unexpected happened. Remember Aunt May? So she went back to the hospital for her procedures. She had a daughter, my little cousin Cindy. Her aunt asked her parents to look after her while she was away, and they, of course, agreed. I can't say that I was upset. We had a normal relationship, but since she came to our house, I felt that her parents pay more attention to her. At first, it looked like a sign of courtesy and respect, then it started to cross the line. Now I was in my brother's place. Whenever I wanted to play with my toys, Cindy would come to my room and ask me to join her. I was angry because I didn't want to share. I sent her away several times. But then my mom and dad called me in. For about 30 minutes, they scolded me for my behavior, saying she was small and I should be more lenient. What? Small? Am I small? And what the hell does it mean to be condescending? Why do they say the same things to me as my brother? I couldn't believe Cindy had taken my place. I didn't know where to vent this anger, so I started writing everything down in my diary, so it was easier. Meanwhile, the hatred grew. Cindy had been with us too long, and it was as if my parents had found a replacement for me. They've never done this before. I was a little girl. I was loved. I was so offended that I felt superfluous, unnecessary, and decided to leave the house. Before I knew it, I was writing down all my thoughts and feelings in my diary. It turns out it's easier this way. In my last entry, I wrote a farewell note and left the diary in my closet. By the time they find it and read it, I'll be far away. I packed my bag and ran out of the backyard and down the road. I walked slowly about 2 blocks and heard a familiar voice. Justin was shouting my name. When I waited for him, he came at me like a madman. I saw tears in his eyes for the first time. He was talking fast, telling me not to get all this crap and come home, and then he said that he loved me very much. I was surprised and started to cry too. I'd never seen him cry, and I didn't think he was so worried about me. I thought he didn't care about me. Just talked me into coming home. It turns out that when I went out through the backyard, he was standing there smoking. When he saw me, he decided to find the diary. I knew you would blackmail me with it, and I wanted to read it, but I came across the last entry. Look, Monica, we fight a lot, but know that you are my family, and I love you, sis, he said. This was unexpected. Then he immediately began to laugh it off, saying that I would not hear anything like it again. I still won't share my toys with you. You're breaking everything, he said, smiling. When we got home, he calmed me down and put me to bed. And when my parents came home from work, I told them everything. At first, they were taken aback with horror. My mother was hysterical. She scolded me first, then hugged me and cried. I kept saying that something might have happened to me if Justin hadn't found the diary in time and run after me. This reaction was to be expected. I burst into tears and told her that it was because of my jealousy of Cindy. Mom and Dad apologized for not paying attention. They explained that they felt sorry for Cindy and tried to help her be stronger while her mother was in the hospital. My mother made me promise not to do this again and tell her about all my experiences. By the way, Cindy's mother went on the mend and soon took her daughter home. I realized that if you hide your inner resentment, the situation only gets worse. Therefore, it is better to share your experiences with your family.